Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? It's been a while. It's a couple weeks. There's a reason for that. So I was going to go on again Friday night, but I have been a lot of physical pain, joints and stuff really hurting. I've been having headaches. Seems like it's round two of ascension symptoms. It's the only thing I can contribute it to. My body is in pain and I am physically exhausted. Like, just I'm beat. I'm not getting up in the middle of the, 1, 2 in the morning anymore. Now it's dragging out to 3, 4, 5 in the morning before I get up and meditate. I have no energy. Sometimes I get really loud, high-pitched rings in one of my ears. And I was thinking, my shoulder really hurts. I'm trying to meditate and my knees and my joints really hurt. And I'm like, I'm just in pain. Is really what it is. And I'm like, I'm getting frustrated, but I'm sorry that I haven't been here for you guys. So today's video is something that's been long overdue. And I think this will help a lot of you. I mean, a vast majority of you who see this, and to my followers. Was my deconstruction from Christianity. Right, so I'm going to go in depth today. I'm going to backtrack into my youth again and bring up a lot of stuff. So when my NDE, which I'll touch on again, took place, that was the profound experience. All right, so today's topic is my deconstruction from Christianity. So here it goes. As a young boy, I was born in 1970, April 1970. I'm a Taurus, late April. I'm assuming that I was baptized. I don't remember that, but my grandparents were heavily religious, and that was Catholicism. The only language that I knew was Catholicism. I believed that the Bible was God's written word, his very breath, without doubt. But we'll get into that more in a little bit. So as a little kid, like 1975, 76, my grandparents, when I would go see my grandparents, especially in the summer times, I was going to church every Sunday. It was, or Saturday night mass. It was without doubt. And I had that crammed down my throat. Now, at the time, I didn't know any better. I thought this was what God wanted us to do, that he wanted us to know this stuff, that this was important stuff. So I was ingrained deeply in Catholicism. My grandmother had Bibles all over the place, passages all over the place that I was reading or she would read to me. She thoroughly believed in it, right? So then, while I was still living, my parents got divorced in 1977, so I was a 7-year-old little boy, and the world turned upside down, right? And I think that's a lot of where I became very angry. I mean, other than the abuse, my mother was very abusive, alcoholic, drugs I'm pretty sure were involved. And I lived with my mother, but that quickly changed by the time 1980 came because my mother, I do believe, doesn't even have a high school education. So she had her own issues, and I hold no judgment against these family members. I have forgiven them without question, hesitation, or doubt. And I love them without question, hesitations, or doubts. But I'm just giving you the background on how Catholicism was run through me and how I had to deconstruct later. So as I was living in Wakanda, Illinois, was where I grew up as a little kid, every other weekend I would go see my, grandparents. My mother never took me to church. I have no idea whether she was religious in any way, shape, or form. We never talked about it. We never spoke about it. It was in my household with my mother, it was a non-thing. All right. It was only when I went to go see my grandparents, right? I would go up to visit my dad, but then Grams would come pick me up. And I really got everything I knew out of life from my grandparents, everything. She taught me how to cook when I would go up there on the weekends in like 75, 76. Grams, what you doing? And I would learn how to cook. Come here. And I would learn how, I mean, by the time I was 5, 6, 7, I could cook. Eggs, scrambled eggs, toast, a number of things. I could take care of myself, right? I knew how to clean. She was teaching me how to clean. So I got everything I needed from my grandparents. My parents were there, all right? Then by the age of 10, I moved up to my parents. But prior to that, when I was living in Wakanda, there was a church or a school that my grandmother took me out of public school at like 5 or 6. So it was 5th and 6th grade that I was pulled out of public school, and my grandmother paid the tuition for this, to go to a Catholic school. So for 5th and 6th grade, I was pulled out of everything I know to get tossed into this school. It was called Transfiguration in Wakanda, Illinois. I don't even know if it's still there or not, but then I really had the Bible shoved down my throat. I mean, I read that thing from cover to cover. Yeah, we went through our studies, but I mean, half of the day was spent in religious readings of the Bible. And I mean, I read that thing from cover to cover. Couldn't stand it then, and I will never read it again now. But I had it shoved down my throat. Enacting plays. I remember I was Jesus in one play, and you'll all know this passage in the Bible, the bleeding woman, right? When she was desperate to get to him while he was going off to raise Jairus' daughter from the dead. And she was saying, if I could only touch just the hem of his garment, just the hem. That she knew that she could possibly be healed, even from just touching her garment, his garment. So as I'm sitting here and we're going through this play and I'm Jesus, out of all the people, you know, how ironic is this? That we get to the part where she falls and she touches the very hem of his garment, and she grabs herself and she's like, you know, and he turns around and I'm saying, who touched me? Who touched me? And he knows who it is because he can see her crying. And I went through this spiel, and I remember the person that was standing across from me was a 5th and 6th grader too, you know, and she was just looking at me, and I just remember saying these words: "Courage, my daughter, your faith has made you well." And I said, you have taught me something. You know, and that, I mean, that's what you would consider just your average everyday Mo in your own mind, that you're teaching Jesus something, the most incredible human being that has ever walked this earth, the most purest human being that showed nothing but love, saying, you taught me something. So let's talk about that phrase for a minute, because it haunted me. Courage, my daughter, your faith. Christianity did not exist back then. Faith is not what cured her. Yes, Jesus and his energy had something to do with it. Remember, your thoughts create your reality. Her belief, her undeniable belief that if she just touched his clothing, that she would be healed. Do you understand the energy that she is putting out? Without question, without hesitation, without doubts. Unbelievable certainty that if she just touched his clothing, she would be healed. And thus, it was so. So take faith out. Faith has nothing to do with this. It was her belief, her undeniable belief that if I could just touch his clothing, I would be healed, or she would be healed. So I was an altar boy. putting on all that crap, lighting the candles, ringing the bells, the whole spiel. So to all of you who have judged me for this guy never read the Bible, this guy never, do not judge, therefore you shall be judged. And since there is no judgment because nobody can do any wrong, it is what it is. So for 2 years, that was my lifestyle in school and at home. When summers came, to church every day. When I got into 7th grade, or the end of 6th and 7th grade, I had to go to CCD. So even though I was then, like I said, pushed up to go live in the little town here in Wisconsin, which is about an hour away from me south, called Twin Lakes, Wisconsin, is where I grew up from the ages of 10 to 18 when I was sent to go live with my father. I still had to go to church and to CCD, more rammed down my throat, listening to how unworthy I was, that I was just a horrific sinner. As you all know, through my bisexuality or my younger days, I knew I was doomed. There was no way, and it made sense to me with all the abuse, the beatings, and all of this, that it was clear that I was an abomination to my father and that I was unloved and unworthy of ever being loved by him. And I accepted my fate, and I turned into a very vengeful, hateful person. I chose the darkness. I chose the pain. I chose the suffering. Again, your thoughts create your reality. So if I'm thinking and believing in all of that, what is going to come to me, ladies and gentlemen? More negativity, more hate, more violence, more this, more that. My thoughts created my reality. I was in godlike mode. I was creating what I was thinking, which was pain and suffering. I entered my first marriage that way. I loved my first wife, but I treated her horribly. Horribly. I was mean. I was mean to my first daughter. I was horrifically mean to my child. And there's an understanding now that we have come back together and we're really building that bond. But I understood why she hated me after my NDE without question or doubt. I was mean. So I carried all of that anger and frustration from the church of being an unworthy sinner, and then it never made sense to me that when I would go to confession and I'd be saying, the rosary, that, what have you done? Well, you're telling me you masturbated, you've had these experiences, you've done this, you've done that. I'm cussing, I'm swearing, I'm doing this, I'm breaking stuff, stealing. Oh, don't worry about it. For the unloving father, the loving father and Jesus who love you, you're forgiven. Wow. So that means I can go rob a bank, rape, mutilate people, and I get to get out of jail free card, right? It never made any sense. And as a little boy, I never felt like I belonged here, me on earth. It didn't seem right. And even to this day, right now as I'm talking to you, I feel exactly the same way. Nothing has changed. I don't belong here. I don't. It's ingrained so deeply within me. It's not a psyche thing. It's a knowing that I don't come from here. I don't fit in here. And being a chosen one is the reason why. But again, I'm straying off path. So when I was in 7th grade, I still had to go to CCD. So all of that stuff ended really at that time. My grandmother woke me up one morning. I think it was like I was 8 years old. So it was 78, 79, somewhere in there. She says, "Come on, Jace, let's go. We're going to church." And I kicked her. I kicked her hard. And I sat up like a crunch. And I screamed at her, "Don't you ever wake me up. Don't you ever wake me up to go to that filth again, to go to church. God doesn't love me." And the look on her face was utter horror. I mean, if I could take anything back in my life, and you want to talk about regrets, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of them, that I wish I never would have said that to her. It breaks my heart because the look on her face was utter devastation when I told her God doesn't love me. And that's the way I felt at the time, strongly, without question or doubt. And that was the last moment from 1978 up until April 2nd of 2020 that I had a relationship with God. I did not speak to him. I did not speak to Jesus. I did not call on them. I said, I will do it on my own. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And she went off to church without me and never asked me again. And I never went to church again. I never stepped foot in a church. All right? Now, did I stop believing in God? No. Did I stop believing in the Bible? No. Those were ingrained in me like I thought I was a boy or I was a man. Right? I don't consider myself a man. I'm not a man. I know exactly what I am or who I am. There is no doubt about that. And I am not a man. So, but in that concept of knowing, I was a boy, wake up with erections, and you do whatever, right? So for all intents and purposes, I was a boy. There's no getting around it, right? And words that haunted me from Jesus in those massively indoctrinated years of being in the Catholic Church for 2 years, school-wise, and that was back then when nuns hit. All right, teachers, they hit you. I mean, they make you put your hands out, and they took a tri-ruler, wham, and they'd smack it on your hands. We were out at recess, and one of those teachers broke a kid's arm. She beat him so badly. You guys don't even know what any of that is about, the younger generation, like Gen Z or whatever. I'm Gen X. You have no idea what it was like to go to school back in those days. Okay? None. You got beat. I mean, it's as simple as that, especially in the Catholic Church. Ironic for, something that's supposed to come out of nothing but love. Teacher breaks his arm, and she still taught. When I left, she was still teaching 2 years after she broke this kid's arm. Beat him mercifully on that playground. But I just found that ironic. But words that haunted me from Jesus when I was going through the Bible were, "You will do greater things than I." And I was like, I got mad. Again, because it was ingrained in me so deeply. You will do greater things than I. I'm like, are you on drugs? How? You're raising people from the dead. You're curing leprosy. You're turning fish and loaves into feeding thousands of people. You're walking on water. How the hell am I going to do greater things than you? And I just became more and more angry because of the indoctrination, the victimization, the manipulation from the church, which at the time I didn't know until after my death, but we're getting up to that. So when I left the church in 78, 79, last relationship I had with God, I never spoke to Father again. Not once. I did not ask him for anything. I did not pray to him, but I never stopped believing. And believe it or not, come to find out, God did not give a rat's ass that I did that in any way, shape, or form. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So, but that was the last relationship I had. And if somebody would come up to me and have, hey, are you, well, I'm Catholic, oh, so you believe? Yeah, I definitely believe in God. I believe in the Bible. I knew where I was going. I didn't indulge in it or anything, but it was like one of the biggest things that I turned on it again, which was crazy because of the experience I had is, well, you're a homosexual. Well, I hope you burn in hell. I'll see you there. I didn't say that, but I'm thinking it's like, you're going to burn in hell, just like I am. So good luck with that. You're nothing but a sick, filthy bastard, according to your Father, and that's where we're all going to go. So, hey, I'll meet you down there. I had a lot of hate, running through my veins from the abuse of the family, growing up as a child, the abuse from the church that I was, indoctrinated into, as well as this Western society. So I was fully ingrained in, yes, I'm an American and I'm a Catholic. in the Western world, firmly believed all that. So I went through my life, my first marriage. My wife passed away. She went to bed one night, and that was that. Got married again, and it was another bad relationship. I didn't know how to love. I didn't know that I was the creator of my reality, that I was creating all of this, that what was being drawn into me was what I was bringing into me, which was the negative energy, lower vibrational people. So another bad marriage to my second wife. She is still, among the living. And I wish her nothing but peace and happiness and joy and love and prosperity. And she is. She's a nurse. She's doing very well. And I'm very proud of her. So I went through my life that way. Jason did what Jason wanted. Why? I knew I was doomed. I didn't care. So if I'm just going to whatever, then that's what I did. I did whatever. I stepped on whatever I stepped on. Man, woman, child, old person, didn't matter. I did it Jason's way. And it was a very hard life. A very non-abundant life. Right? A lot of suffering, a lot of barely scraping by, days of not eating. That's what I was being brought into. So now we're going to fast forward 21:21 on the clock. Wow. Okay, I got you. I'm telling them the truth. So now we're going to fast forward. I'm divorced, have been divorced since 2015. Struggling hard, very hard to pay bills, to get enough, find a place to stay. My credit still shot now. And fully ingrained in this world, this make-believe world, the haves and have-nots. Why can't I have a good house? Why can't I have a good car? Why can't I have money in the bank? Why can't I go on a vacation? Remember what Jesus said. Do not fall in love with this materialistic world. It will bring you ruin. And it did. Without doubt, I was chasing the wrong things. That shit doesn't matter. That's why I quit watching TV, and that's basically why I quit driving. I don't want to see the billboards. Come buy this, come buy that, turn on the TV. Oh, I need this. Look at this. You need this. You need that. Oh, this, that. I'm done with it. I am absolutely done with this world. It draws you in like a drug, right? And that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to keep you separated from your true self until you realize one day, like I did, that it is all a game, that it's all an illusion. And the sooner you quit chasing those things, the more abundance you will have. So anyway, it is now 2020. I've been living in this apartment now since 2017, 18, and in this very spot, just sitting back against the back of cushion. I had come home from a job that I absolutely despised. It was April 2nd of 2020. So it was a spring day. Things were starting to green up, It was sunny out. I come home from work and I had made a bagel sandwich. I just popped the bagel in there, cooked it, made an egg, sprinkled a little salt and pepper on there, a little cheese, and I sat down and I started to eat. But prior to this, by 2 or 3 weeks, I kept waking up with the taste of blood in my mouth. I'm like, I bite my cheek, I bite my tongue. We had this spiel at work about this COVID thing. It's like, I'm 49 years old. I'm indestructible. Yeah, I've gotten into head-on car accidents. I've almost drowned. Ice skating in the middle of the lake, I fell through. The beatings, you name it. I fell down from trees like 50 feet up, bouncing down and landing on my face. I was like, nothing's going to kill me. Nothing. So I come home, sit in this very spot. I take a couple bites, and all of a sudden I burped. My life is changing right in this moment. I don't know it, but it is now. I am actively dying. I am in the process of dying. This body is shutting down. And I swallowed, and it was the most horrific taste I couldn't even begin to tell you the taste, right? So I swallowed it, and I'm like, go to take another bite of the sandwich, and blood. I coughed up blood. And I'm not talking, when you cut your finger and it's dark red. I'm talking this was cherry red blood. Cherry red blood. As bright as you could get it. And it landed on my sandwich, and I coughed up again, and it landed on my plate. And I coughed up again, and I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, you sit here in disbelief. Like, and it's nonstop. It's coming every, and I'm starting to panic because now I can't breathe. Breathing is becoming very labored, and I knew exactly what was happening. I was dying. I knew I was going to die if I didn't do something. So who do I call? I call my ex-wife. I start to FaceTime her frantically. Called and nothing. And I started FaceTiming her. And now I'm in the kitchen because I am coughing up blood, and the whole kitchen sink is just covered in blood, bright red blood. She finally answers the phone. And for all of you watching me, you'll know this in my NDE when I tell it. She goes, what do you want? And I tried to speak to her, and blood coughed up, and, it hit the phone and dribbling down. And one of the last things I remember was she jumped up and said, Jason, very concerned, very, very concerned. And I said, I don't feel well. I said, I'm continuing to cough. I said, I'm going to go lay down. I'm tired. And the last thing I remember her saying is, Jason, if you lie down, you're going to die. I didn't care. I couldn't breathe. I was so exhausted. I knew I was dying. I knew where I was going to go. There was no doubt about it. And that's the last thing I remember. I remember waking up in the hospital. Pitch dark. Hands and feet strapped to the bed. Myriad of nurses and doctors talking. And do you know who you are? Do you know who's president? Do you know this? And again, a little bit of my NDE here. Before I really get into my deconstruction, I have to go through this, was right up there in the corner of the room was a TV, and this room was huge. In front of me to the wall was very short, but then it branched out for others to come in. There was a sofa and TV and chairs back there. And, the control panel for all controlling me. My hands and feet were strapped to the bed, stuff in the nose, the IV right in the carotid artery, tube in my mouth. I couldn't talk. All I'm hearing is medical machines just beeping and, but from that time, there was somebody there. It was undeniable. I wanted to go there so badly. I just kept staring at the TV because it wasn't the TV. There was just an undeniable presence that I recognized so strongly. And that went on for a month. And then I get off the ventilator, catheter and all that. I'm healing. Nobody's in the room. That was I don't know what day it was. They had, no one was in the room. It was maybe 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Beautiful sunny day. And that presence is still at the, sorry, I had to tickle my throat. That presence was still at the TV. It never wavered. It never faltered. Nothing. It was there. And then when you're dying, or whatever I had gone through, I don't know why I did this. I don't know why I cried out to God. But I lost 75 pounds. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. But I got up from the bed in a laying position, and I had my hand, and I was shaking uncontrollably, just shaking uncontrollably. And got up and I said, God, please. Why? Now, this is the first time since 1978 or 79 that I am calling out to my Father, to God. Please, don't let me die. Please. Right? And I am saying, I love you. Please don't let me die. I am sorry that I abandoned you. I am sorry that I quit having a relationship with you and Jesus. Still thinking that Jesus is the only Son of God, right? that I'm unworthy to even be speaking his name right now. From the things that I had done in my life, the guilt and the shame were all there. And I'm like, please don't take my children from me. Please let me see them one more time, please. Wow, there's orbs going around in here. That was weird. But I said, please, and I'm sobbing uncontrollably. I can't really speak, so it's like hoarse, you know. And I'm like, Jesus, I love you too, and I'm sorry that I had abandoned you, which was goofy, but we'll get into that. That's Catholicism right there. And I said, I love you. And I said, there's someone here. I will not mention her real name. I'll just call her Lee. And I said, please don't take Lee from me. Please don't take her from me, please. I want to hold her hand. I want to kiss her. I want to smell her breath. I want to make love to her again. Please don't take me. And then next thing you know, I saw everything around me, 360 degrees, gone. I was at the top of the ceiling. So at first I saw all the medical tubes and valves and stuff behind me. I could see it crystal clear. I saw everything around me in the whole ICU room where both stations, nurses, and they were leaning over their little stations there. Saw everybody in the ICU room, the probably 30 rooms, 20 or 30 rooms up there that were full of people dying. Now, as I'm describing this, I'm at the top of the ceiling. I see this sack of crap laying on the bed, which I had no love or desire of, none, in any way, shape, or form. Didn't matter to me at all. I was like, boy, he looks like me. But after that, I didn't pay any attention to it. I was focused, or my energy was focused that way. I'm seeing through the wall. The wall really isn't there anymore. I'm seeing the whole field, the tree, the blue of the sky didn't exist. So I'm looking at the grass and I'm seeing every blade of grass. Every blade of grass in that field, I could see crystal clear. I could see the serrations in them. I could see the veins going up and out through them. I'm talking not one blade. I'm talking every blade of grass. And I could see the tree soul. So when you see a tree and its bark, I could see like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I could see their soul. Not only that, but I am feeling their love for me. The love that I was in constant, the light that was when I was in constant, are just no words to describe. None. The love that was bestowed upon me. I knew exactly where I was. Exactly where I was. I knew who that energy was. That was my Father. That was me returning to oneness, home, God. That we call God. It is simply pure consciousness. I was more alive, out with no shape or form. And I knew everything there was to ever know in the universe. Everything was given to me instantly. There was no guilt, there was no fear, and there was no ego. I was at peace, pure peace. And the thought began to creep into my consciousness. And that's when I said it was telecommunication, telepathic. I'm home, just like I said it. I'm home. I knew exactly where I was. I knew exactly what was taking place. And I knew that energy that I was merged with and became was God. And when I said in one of my interviews, I think it was with Dave Sledge, I said, I am God. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am God. All of you are gods. The correct manifestations of your Father. That knowledge has stuck with me and has been given to me along with other things that we'll talk about. The next energy that was coming, not yet, but then another thought came into my consciousness was, as I'm looking out on the field and viewing and receiving all of this love, was, what a beautiful day to die. It was so nonchalant and so relaxed that I had done it and I had been there a million times. It was absolutely natural and normal. It felt like I was truly home. A place where we come from, where we originate from. I joined the Father as Jesus spoke those words to millennia ago. I and the Father are one. All right? So now, the other presence that came up, now mind you, I never saw anything other than the colors and the souls of everything and everyone and all of that stuff. I understand why now that I didn't see anybody. I didn't need to see anybody. I knew exactly who it was. There was no questions or doubts. So when that other presence showed up, this unbelievable love that was of Yeshua, Yeshua showed up. I didn't need to see him. I knew exactly who it was. It was a recognizable energy. Like when you walk into somebody's house that you haven't been there for a while, right, where you grew up with and whatever, and you're gone 20 years and you walk in and you're like, wow. That was the feeling. That was in an instant knowledge of who that being was. And the love bestowed upon me, I felt unworthy because of the things that I have done. And the more guilt that I felt and the more ashamed that I felt, the more love that was bestowed upon me. And that is all Father wanted or needed. There is no judgment. There was no, well, you did this and that. No, it was instant. I'm so happy you're home. I was embraced. I was loved. And I was given knowledge that I was lied to my entire life. So when I came back into my body, when Yeshua pushed me back into my body, how long that took place, it could have been 15 hours, could have been 12 hours. I have no idea. I was young again. I was juiced. Like it was the most amazing and beautiful thing. It was a return home. The ego was gone, fear, guilt. I was at peace. And with the knowledge of everything that has ever existed or will ever exist is what I was in that moment. So when I was gently pushed back into my body and I felt his hands just gently, and then pushed me back into my body and laid me back down on the bed, I was instantly out, gone. Wake up. Nurse was frantically trying to wake me up, so I have no idea. Time-wise, again, didn't exist. Time doesn't exist. And they, we've been trying to wake you up, and I'm like, take meds. No. Nope. How do I explain to somebody what just happened to me? All right? What just happened to me should not have happened to me, per my Catholicism. This is now where the deconstruction, this was the beginning of my deconstruction. Right here. I knew when I opened my eyes, without a doubt, who I was. Who I once thought I was completely and totally superficial. This body, or this person named Jason Janis, did not exist, never has, never will be. I am not Jason Janis. And I knew that without doubt. So, as quick as I could, and I had no business doing this, but I checked myself out of the hospital. I said, I'll sue all of you, and which was a bad idea because I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't eat. I smashed my car into everything I could getting home because I couldn't drive. Took one step out, fell down, dragged myself in across the parking lot, into the house where I laid in bed, laid in my own feces for days because I couldn't get out. I had no strength to get up and go to the bathroom. So had my bowel movements, laying in it. Finally rolled out of bed, smashed my face on the ground, pulled myself to the shower. We're there. I turned on, got the water on, but then I had no strength to turn it off. So there I sat in the water for hours. I went through hell. I literally went through hell. So by June, 111 on the clock, would you look at that? Wow, okay, I know I'm doing it. I feel it. They're talking to me. Numbers, sequential numbers, right? 111. And I saw 2121. Same thing. So I'm going through my mind, I know what happened. I'm trying to, because the ego is back, fear, guilt, all of this is back. Now I know without a doubt what took place, what happened. But the ego is trying to save itself and say, no, that really didn't happen. So then I went on a binge of knowledge. And I was like, what do I do? And now it's 2 months later and I'm struggling. I can't find a job. My company fired me. There's no money coming in, eviction notices, repossession notices from my vehicle. I have no one. So I'm worried about losing my place and being homeless. I'm worried about losing my vehicle, can't find a job. There's no food in the house. I'm selling furniture at an epic place just so I can buy ramen noodles. My landlord started working with me when they found out what had happened, but my vehicle got repossessed. I had to file bankruptcy. Then I stopped it. Long story. But in that process, I had become very, very depressed. Very depressed. And one afternoon, I was like sitting here and I stood up from the couch and I'm like, you can't do this to somebody. You can't do that to somebody. Do you know how hard that is to come back to try and live a physical life knowing where you just were? I said, you can't do that to somebody. That's cruel. And I'm walking back and forth, and I'm like, I'm trying to think of what I said to him. And this was the most important part of it. I happened to walk into my bedroom. Oh, that's what it was. And I said, you picked the wrong person. You picked the wrong person for this. All right? You should have picked the Pope. You see, Catholicism, I'm stuck in it, even though I knew where I just was. I knew where I was 2 months ago. And I'm still feeling all the love from home. I'm still feeling it, right? I said, you should have picked the Pope or a bishop. And this is when Father spoke to me. It was a stern voice, but oh so loving and oh so fatherly. And this is why I call God Father. Because in the moment of my transition out of my body, the love that was bestowed upon me by not only Father, but by Jesus, but mainly by Father, by both, I felt like I was his one and only son. The love is something I cannot describe to you. All right? So when I said that to him, I said, you picked the wrong person. Catholicism, remember? You should have picked the Pope. Should have picked the bishop. Somebody worthy of that love. And again, his voice came through. He spoke to me. He was speaking to me through how I was feeling, the love and the emotions and everything. He's talking to me. My higher self is, I don't know yet. I'm confused. I don't know that's how he's communicating. Last ditch effort, God will speak to you in a verbal voice. He does not like it and will not do it unless it's absolutely necessary, because it's a very limited, barbaric language. It doesn't convey the experience, the feeling behind it. There's no feeling behind it. I can tell you I love you, but you won't do it. You won't understand it until I'm standing in front of you and you can feel my energy. You can feel my love. So that is how he's communicating with me. And I'm overloaded with love, a love that I don't know what to do with. So he said, when I said that, you picked the wrong person, and I'm shaking my fist at him because I'm angry. And he said, why not? You are my son. And it was right then and there that I dropped to my knees at the end of my bed. And I've spoken this numerous times. And I need you to listen. Excuse me. When I dropped to my knees and I was looking up in the corner of my room, I raised my hands and I said, for all that I am you. 2 millennia ago, those words were spoken just differently. I didn't realize that at the time until months later when I said, wow, that's Jesus said, I and the Father are one. When I said, for all that I am you. I am God. And that is when I surrendered fully, without question or doubt, knowing that I am God, the direct manifestation of my Father. My Father wanted to experience, he knows everything, but in order to know everything, it's not okay just to know everything. Without experiencing it firsthand, you can't really understand what that knowing is. Like all of us know that are watching this, if you've got the stove on and it's red hot and you put your hand to it, you're going to know what that is like. Why? Because you've burned yourself, and it's a burn it is unrelenting in pain. But until you experience it, until you tell that 2-year-old not to touch the stove, it's hot, means nothing to them, right? Until they touch that stove and melt their fingers and they let out that wail, they've learned through experience that's hot. So tell that to a soul that has never come down here, that has never been in the physical body, the physical realm, what hot is. They know what hot is, but they don't really know what it is until you get really burned. Then you know what hot is. So that is when I instantly knew, without a doubt, who I was. And I surrendered. And from that moment on, I went on a massive knowledge binge. YouTube, reading, researching. Has this happened to anyone before? And that is where I found out the near-death experience. I typed in stuff onto YouTube, and up popped this, and a man was explaining his experience, and I'm sobbing because I'm reliving mine and feeling it. And I was like, other people have had this. Then I went on the knowledge of the Bible binge. Who wrote the fucking Bible? It's not God's word. God has nothing to do with the Bible. Nothing. Not at all. And the being that you know as what the church calls Jesus Christ was written out of the Bible. His true message, his true meaning is being hidden by the church. They don't want you to know. All right? So I went on this insane, and I still am, knowledge binge. I just purchased these books because I've been asking my Father for more knowledge, more. And I ordered these books, and I'm reading this. I got all 3 of them, and they are Conversations with God. And I'm in the process of reading the first book. And it is insanely knowledgeable in all the things that I experienced. And some that, when Father's talking, he seems kind of grumpy, but he's very matter of fact about what he's saying. So I went on this knowledge binge. And then while I'm sitting, was it last year when I began going through my ascension process? Start your YouTube channel. I'm like, nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe this. So I started telling my story. And then came the YouTube channel. Then came the YouTube channel. Then I started my own business. I heard, start your own business. I'm playing a video game, start your business. How the hell do I don't. And people came out of the woodwork, people that I've resonated with, that I've saved their lives through talking about my experience, came out of the woodwork and started my business up for me, paid for the first year. The person that edits my videos, because I got his channel up and running because I was his first interviewee, his channel started to just flourish. So they came out of the woodwork, people, and they're soulmates that we agreed upon this before we came into this life. So that took place. And then during that time, 2 months after my NDE, so we're back into 2020, right? It's June, July. I was told, go to church. I was like, I don't want to. It's meaningless, right? But I'm still feeling guilty about the conflict that is raging within me. Mind you, I'm still deeply depressed. I am still feeling the love of home. When I got up like 4 days after I got home and I was still gravely ill, I woke up and I felt somebody get off the side of my bed. I felt somebody get off the side of my bed. I turned over, there's nobody there. So I'm being watched and taken care of. And in some of my videos, you heard me say, you're never alone. You are never alone, ladies and gentlemen. You are not on your own in any way, shape, or form. So I went to church. I'm telling my pastor exactly what happened, word for word, verbatim, the feelings, the love, and all that. And he was horrified. Horrified. He sat there 45 minutes, didn't say a word. I'm sobbing uncontrollably. Said, wow, I'd like you to talk to, the congregation, small ones at first, and then, full congregation. Talk to the CCD kids and all of that. And I'm like, sure. And then I was blacklisted. He refused my phone calls. He refused my texts. He refused me coming into church. And that's why Father wanted me to go, to prove one last time that it's not real. And that is when, now this is 2 years that I'm struggling with this. And then by the end of 2022, I was fully deconstructed from Catholicism. I let it go. I forgave the church, and that was a big part of it, is that I forgave the church for what they had done to me, leading me down a trail of lies, deceit, deception, in being indoctrinated into their to their filth, into their lies, into their manipulation. And that was very hard for me to do. And a lot of it, I was holding on to the anger. I was like, but I let it go. But it was hard because it was so ingrained in me, right? From the time I was a little boy, like all of you. And some of you are going through this. You're struggling with the church. That's the ego that is holding on to it, right? He wants you to be confused and in disarray because then he takes control. But once I said, I know what I am. I know I'm God. I know there is no hell. There is no sin. None of this exists. The church is doing it to keep themselves in power. They're there to keep you in your very limited power. They know, and if all of you have watched the Da Vinci Code, 2 major problems with that. Huge problems. One, and it goes into the chosen. The chosen is good, but again, it's coming from an evil evangelicist, I think Dallas is, and Christianity, which did not exist back then, which is a pile of crap when they try to throw it in there. But at some scenes that depict Jesus do it extremely well, and I think they just got lucky with it. But they did an excellent job with it. Is that, one, Mary Magdalene was his wife. Not a whore, not a drunk, not a prostitute. Those two fell in love from the time they were teenagers. Madly in love. They snuck away every chance they could to go get out into the wilderness, sit into the trees, and just be teenagers. Be rebellious, like we all are. They loved one another. And to this day, even though both are at home and enlightened, their love still remains the same. Jesus loves his wife, Mary Magdalene, more than anything. The only thing that changed about their relationship is it can no longer will ever be physical. They will no longer make love. They will no longer make children. That is gone. Once we become enlightened, there is no more physical body. There is no more physical realm. We stay home. Then we help teach others that come here. So, that is portrayed wrong in the Da Vinci Code. And I know this. And I'm always the one teaching the stuff that needs to be taught. While others tell their near-death experiences, I'm teaching you guys the truth. All right? So the second was they don't care about Jesus' children, his bloodline, has nothing to do with it, what the Vatican has in their archives. And mind you, if you try and break into those archives, you will be shot dead. If you manage to get into there and avoid capture, they will shoot you and kill you on sight, without doubt. Make no mistake about it. They will shoot you dead on sight. So what is worth killing and murdering for? The truth of who Jesus was, what he was truly teaching. That is what is down in the archives. It is not about his descendants. Jesus has hundreds or thousands of descendants from his first life to his last life with Mary Magdalene. Just like Mary Magdalene has other children from other lives. So what? If I've been born or died over 3,200 times, imagine the children and the offspring that I have throughout this physical realm. Who cares? What they are hiding from you is the truth of who he was, what he was teaching, which was to go within, to meditate. Everything you need is right here from Father. It has been given to us. It's right here. And he was teaching that. He was teaching how to love, how to forgive, how to meditate, how to reach that power, to become the God that he was. He was no different than any of us. None. We all have it. I've controlled it once, and it's truly terrifying when you control that power. It truly is. It took me by surprise. But it truly lies within us. That is what he was teaching. That, look, everybody, you're no different than I am. This is how you do it. And the church at the time could not allow that to happen. That is when the church had the power to put you to death. Even in the 1400s, they still had that power to kill you. And that did happen on, what was it? Friday the 13th, 1303, when Pope Clement and Philip had the Crusaders that went and, First Crusade, Second Crusades, all rounded up and tortured and murdered and put 50 of them to death by burning at the stake in 1313, something like that. They're covering their tracks. They'd become way too powerful. They knew everything that the church was doing back then during the Crusades to cover up who Jesus was. They have covered and took a hold of everything about Jesus, who he really was. And it's down in those archives. Nobody is allowed in there. Nobody is allowed in those archives. Stuff that I was given. All right? And that is how I deconstructed from Catholicism. And remember, at the time, I had nobody to talk to. Nobody. My children didn't believe me, and I wasn't talking to my oldest at the time. My youngest was like, Dad, you're here. You didn't die. Nobody knows. I had nobody. So I went on a knowledge binge, and I'm still on a knowledge binge of I want more. And I keep telling my father during meditations, I want more. Led me to those books. I am reading them, and it's phenomenal. One of the biggest things Father said, and I have told you long before I read this book, which was confirmation, and this video has gone on an hour, but that's okay. It's a good video. We come here for two things. We don't come here to learn. We don't come here to it's not a school. All right? I told you in the beginning that in order for us, even though I knew everything there was to know, you don't really know it until you experience it. So we come here to rediscover, number one reason, we come here to rediscover who we are. Well, guess what? I did that with flying colors when I died. I rediscovered who I am. I know it without doubt. And I don't have a problem saying it anymore. I am God. When Jesus spoke it in the Bible, when he said, I and the Father are one, listen to me, people. And the Pharisees picked up stones to stone him. And I've said this a million times. And he said, for which of the good works from the Father have I shown you that I am to be stoned? They said, for your good works, not. But you, being a man, make yourself God. The response from Jesus, isn't it written in your laws? I said, you are gods. This isn't Christianity. This isn't any other religion. This is ancient Aramaic. This is ancient Judaism. 2 millennia ago, this was written down. So why would they drop all their stones and walk away, knowing the truth that they are all gods? Now, if he was speaking to just one person, isn't it written in your law? I said, you are God? Then how can you tell me I blaspheme? So all of you that get pissed off when I say I am God, good, wake up. It's time. 2025 is going to get bizarro, crazy. Shit is going to go down. And I'm going through my second set of ascension symptoms. I am in pain, a lot of pain, and I am brutally tired. So I know it's hitting me hard. Changes are coming. I love you guys, and I'm going to let it go at that, all right? Thank you for sticking with me. Sorry I haven't put out content in a while. I told you why. I am just beat, physically beat, tired, sore. Just, yeah, it's beyond belief. This Friday, guys, when this comes out, hopefully you'll see it by then, I will come on live, 7 p.m. Central. I will be there. I hope everybody had a wonderful day. We can talk about, is Christmas really real? I think if all of you stop to think about it for a minute, that, well, you know the answer, but I'll briefly talk on that on Friday night. Well, let's welcome the new year in. I love you all so very much. I hope the new year starts with a bang for you guys, that it begins to roll. Remember, your thoughts create your reality. Stay in the vibration of love and forgiveness, love and light. Forgive those, love those, as I love you. I love you all very much. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again soon. Bye, guys.